Welcome back. We're here for episode number 31 of Two Playing Sports. And this week or this episode, we're going to just go over the depth chart for the Sooners. Maybe go top one, top two as far as the depth chart. There's been no official release of a depth chart. So we're just going off of what we think, what we've read, and maybe a little bit of an instinct type pick. So no guarantees this is going to be right. We just thought it'd be a fun deal to go through. So we really appreciate the support. We're now over 500 subscribers. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and let us know what you think about this depth chart prediction that we're coming out with. You might disagree and you might have your points, and we'd like to hear from you. So we appreciate it, and we'll get into it. And so we're going to start with the offense first, which I think everyone is, if you're a Sooner fan, the offense is going to be good. So the competition is going to be thick. We're not going to really argue over as far as the XYZ positions in the wide receiver room. We'll go through like a group of three, as if it was XYZ, but we're not going to get into each one. So as far as the starting group goes for me in the wide receiver category, I think the first one to go through is Marvin Mims. I don't think we're going to argue about that. He burst on the scene last year. He's terrific. Where it could get interesting is what we see in the other two spots. I really think Mike Woods is going to be the starter. And in one of the positions, I think Hazelwood and Weiss are going to battle for a spot, which I think Weiss. So basically my three starters are going to be Mims, Woods, and Weiss. Those are going to be my three. And like we've talked about, this is somewhat it's 1A, 1B type deal. Just because you take the first snap doesn't mean you get pulled and get put on the bench for the next couple snaps. Means they bring someone else in. Those three, that's what I think. I think Mario Williams will compete for a starting position. What do you think, Jose?
Before I give my opinion, because Oklahoma's offense, as we all know, they're going to go further than three deep. I just want to get an idea. Who do you think would be their number 4 receiver? Do you think it could be Stoops? Do you think Theo or Jaden Hazelwood at that point would come in?
It depends. It depends on the package, but who I think would be on the field more would probably be Drake Stoops, just because he goes over the middle a little more. Not as much of an outside guy, more in between the the hash markers. I think it would be Stoops that would play more, but it depends if they go to like a wide receiver, like a triple set or 3 set on the one side and then 1 receiver on the other side, 4 receivers in that set. I could see Hazelwood coming in and doing that in that position, and then Stoops would be on the bench. What do you think?
No, I think that's fair. I think I would agree there for the most part. My starting 3 are one, like you said, Mims 100%, Mike Woods, and then I would put Hazelwood at the other outside position. I think Weiss would actually, in my scenario, would be number 4 in this depth chart. He isn't afraid to go down the middle, and he's bigger than Stoops would be. So I think that's the advantage that I would give him over Stoops. Now, I do think Stoops is going to play. I think it would be crazy to think he's not, but he's not going to get significant playing time like Weiss will in my scenario. And I think Woods has the expectation of being great, and Hazelwood, I think injuries have been the only reason he really hasn't been able to be on the field. So as long as he can stay injury free, I think he's still more talented than Weiss.
Yeah, and that's what's kind of weighing into my decision. They both had injuries last season. Hazelwood had one that kept him out longer. It's just a lot of that unknown. I feel like Weiss, he got a good base and really started playing well last year. But does the starting position really matter that much in the wide receiver room? I don't know. I don't really think so. But Mario Williams, he's going to get his fair share of catches and whatnot. And maybe halfway through the season, he might be more of playing more and more every week as he gets more and more comfortable. So I think either way, we're splitting hairs at this point, but I could see your argument for Hazelwood. I think he has a higher ceiling than Weiss, but it's really close.
Yep.
So then we'll move on to the linemen. We'll go through each tackle and guard and center and the other side. So we'll start with the left tackle position. Wanya Morris, he came in and he's a great athlete and has a lot. He has a very high ceiling. I just don't know, or Wanya, I just don't know if he's got the upper body strength just yet. I know there's some concerns about his eligibility this year. I think it's fine. I don't think there's any issues with it. I think he's got it cleared up as far as the transfer goes. Personally, I kind of think Anton Harrison's going to start at that left tackle position. What do you think?
I am for Wanya Morris. I think he's a junior, so he doesn't have very much time left with us. Anton's a sophomore, so I think Lincoln will want to take advantage of Wanya's experience. They're probably not too different. It'll just be a matter of you can bring something more. You have experience from playing in a different system that could be a benefit to our line. I think Wanya is also just a little bit more talented than Anton right now. Anton probably has a little bit more development to go through, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I know the eligibility was a big question a few weeks ago. So as long as that's straightened out, I think it's Wanya's job to lose right now.
Yeah, and then we'll move to the left guard position. I think last year the starter was at Marquise Hayes' spot. I think most likely I see him obviously starting back there. I don't think there's going to be much of a question with him in that spot. What do you think?
No, I agree 100%. That's a spot. No one's taking him unless the only reason he's not there is if he gets hurt, which hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and then we've got at center, I think Andrew Rayne. I think he's coming in as a sophomore. Well, I guess technically he's a freshman because of COVID. So I think Rayne, this is his job to lose at this point over the last couple of weeks. I don't think he's going to lose it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's Rayne 100%. The ex Broken Arrow Tiger. He's the starting center. I know there was there was like a competition between Andrew and one other guy. I mean, there probably still is, but it seems like as the days go on, Rayne has secured that spot.
Yeah. Robert Congol, that's who you're talking about. That's a transfer from the University of Arizona that came in. So the right guard position, this is where it gets interesting. The right guard, right tackle position. So we've got Tyrese Robinson. He played the guard position last year, and he was good, no question about it. But what I've read is he's been taking some snaps at that tackle position, that right tackle spot. And I don't know if that's really going to happen or not. What I could see happening is if someone gets hurt, which, not to jump ahead, but Eric Swenson, I know some Sooner fans will not be so happy to hear his name because of his just inconsistent play. But if Swenson gets hurt, I feel like Robinson would switch out to the right tackle spot, and then Chris Murray would slide in at that right guard position. The transfer from UCLA, he didn't come this past offseason, but the season before. I just feel like Tyrese Robinson for now is going to be that right guard position. But I think if Swenson gets hurt again, I think we could see him going to that tackle spot and then have Chris Murray sliding in at right guard. What do you think?
So I think it's Tyrese is just going to stick to the guard position. I mean, do you want to, is your prediction for right tackle Swenson?
It's Swenson as of right now, but it could definitely change.
Okay. For right tackle, I think it'll actually be Anton. I think they just don't want to put him at left tackle because it's obviously Spencer's blind side. You want to make sure there's a little bit more confidence in the guy at left tackle. I think Anton's going to play right for this year. And then if Wanya does move on to the league next year, and maybe those guys flip every once in a while, depending on what the coaches see at the beginning of the season with those non-conference games, that could definitely be swapped where Anton goes left and Wanya goes right. But I think those are going to be the starting tackles for the year.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I don't know, Wanya. I'm 50-50 on him. I think Anton Harrison, I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's really good. It seems like Bray Walker is just not going to be a factor, and I don't think if he's a factor this year, I just don't think he's going to. It just isn't going to happen. I could be wrong. I might eat my words, and I hope I have to eat my words. I just don't think he's going to be much of a player as far as pushing for a starting position this fall. So I don't know. Tight end position, I don't think there's any argument about this one. Austin Stogner, I think what he did last year was great, but I think his ceiling is so much higher this year. What do you think?
Yeah, Austin Stogner. I think the next few positions we're going to go through are going to be gimmies, but yeah, Stogner is 100% the guy there at tight end.
Yeah, and then you got at H-back, you've got Jeremiah Hall, but I will say Rayne Willis, he's going to play a lot. I just don't think he's going to be the starter. I know Willis can be playing as a backup tight end as well. It just depends on the personnel that they bring in. Those three in that tight end H-back position, those are going to be kind of a rotating spot, but I think Hall's going to and Stogner are going to be the technically the starters. What do you think?
Yeah, it's Hall. I think he's also just kind of been a cornerstone to the offense since he's first been able to take the field. So there's no reason to take that spot away from him. It's his last season.
Yeah, for sure. Quarterback position. Remember earlier this spring when everyone was like, "Oh, could Caleb Williams really push for a starting spot?" Come on. Spencer Rattler is going to start. Not saying that Caleb Williams isn't great because he's a terrific talent. It's just we need to redshirt him. This is Rattler's team, barring horrific injury. I don't think it's much of an argument.
Yeah, it's Spencer. Mentioning spring games, it might happen with every school, but I think for the last, at least since Baker and Kyler worked together, the backup quarterback, there's always stories. Can the backup take the spot? I'm pretty sure, I can't remember who was backing up Kyler before we got Jaylen, obviously, the transfer.
What was it? It wasn't Tanner Mordecai. It was Austin Kendall.
Austin Kendall. People were thinking Austin Kendall was going to take Kyler's spot because he had an all right spring game, but like, come on. I think it's just kind of, we have nothing to talk about in football, so we got to come up with something.
And that's a good headline. That's people are like, what are you talking about? But running back position, this one could be interesting. I mean, it's a weird spot. Kennedy Brooks, COVID last year, he opted out, so he didn't play all last year. And then you've got transfer Eric Gray coming in. Basically two guys that weren't in the system last year are coming in. I personally think if we're talking week one, I think Eric Gray is going to get the start. I just think because, granted, Gray wasn't in the Sooners offense, but his body's in that same cycle of football, the football program year round, the contact in the fall and the training in the spring. Not saying that Brooks wasn't, but there's a difference between being in shape and football shape. I just think Eric Gray is going to get the start. I think the carry split, it's going to be 55-45, 60-40, 50-50. It's going to be pretty even. What do you think?
I think it's Kennedy that will get the nod for like the number one running back spot when you see the depth chart written out. But I agree, those guys are going to be flipping back and forth. And to be honest, it's just going to be who's got the hot hand today. And that's who's going to get the most carries each game. But yeah, personally, I just think Kennedy will get the nod for the number one spot.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so that's offense. Not a whole lot of differences, just a difference of left tackle, right tackle, and that's about it. And a couple of wide receiver deals. But we'll move on to defense. I don't think there's going to be a big argument or much difference in the very beginning. Defensive end, Isaiah Thomas, I just, I don't think he's going to – there's no way he doesn't start.
No, and he solidified his spot with his play last year. Like, Reggie Grimes would have had to make a huge push and big strides in his development to take over the starting spot. But something else to mention, Alex Grinch's defense is all rotational. So,
Mm-hmm.
just because we say that they're the starter doesn't mean that their backup isn't going to play. I think they're just going to get like 80% of the snaps, and they'll just be kept fresh throughout the game.
Yeah, and speaking of that, that depth and that rotation, it's going to be interesting to see at that position who's going to be the number 2. Is it going to be Reggie Grimes or is it going to be Ethan Downs? We just released a Houdat earlier. What was it, last week? We put a Houdat out on Ethan Downs, and I'm a big fan of his. And I like Reggie Grimes too. I'm not saying he's a terrific talent, raw and athletic. It's going to be interesting. Do the Sooners try to redshirt Ethan Downs? Do they let him play for 4 games this year and then kind of put him aside and let him, get bigger and practice more? I would like to keep his redshirt year unless they project him to play more than unless he's playing more than 20% of snaps. I think we need to keep his redshirt year. If he's going to play like 12, 15% of snaps, is that really worth burning a year of eligibility for him? It's going to be interesting what his role is going to be. I mean, granted, injuries can change. I think Reggie's going to be the number 2 this year just because of that red shirt factor. But I think long-term Downs could be more of a contributor and a starter soon. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Grimes is the number 2. I'm a big Reggie Grimes fan. I think Reggie Grimes fan. So I think he'll start once Isaiah leaves. Also with Ethan, like you said, this is his freshman year. No reason to get rid of that red shirt. And then thinking to the next couple of years, Isaiah, this is his last year. I believe of his last year just overall of eligibility. So we can't see him back. Might as well just let Reggie slowly take on more reps this year from Isaiah. And then next year we have Reggie Grimes starting at defensive end with a promising number 2 and Ethan Downs right behind him with all 4 years of eligibility left.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. It's going to be something to watch. The more I've started to watch the Sooners and paying attention to their depth chart and doing this podcast, I'm starting to really care more and more what's that number 2 position player, what is going on there. Getting a better look at what's going to be over the next few years. So moving on, nose tackle. I don't think there's going to be any argument. Perion Winfrey. I mean, that guy is a tone setter for the Sooners. He's been part of the turnaround. He just brings that energy and that you can just tell by his social media, and just the way he played last year was just different. We haven't had a guy like him that has that mentality and that energy that really you need to play. I think you said on the last episode, kind of playing with that swagger and a little bit of cockiness. You kind of have to have that on defense. You have to have a player or 2 that has that. He has that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's Perion, obviously. I know you didn't mention who you think will be number 2, but I think it's going to be Isaiah Coe, the transfer. I think him and Perion are very similar builds, probably have similar games, just because it's, if you're built like that, why take advantage of your size? Don't try to be a finesse dude and just might as well just maul through people. And honestly, I'm really hoping that we see, kind of throwing back, if you remember, I think his name was Sean Oakman, the linebacker from Baylor, a picture that was scary like that, but of Perion this year, just with just him staring down right tackle, making him look tiny, because Perion is a huge man.
Yeah, for sure. I could see Coe, Josh Ellison, another transfer. He played a little bit last year, been in the system. I just, it's splitting hairs. I feel like he might clean up some of the snaps, but he might not. So the other tackle position, defensive tackle position, I think it's going to be Jaylen Redmond, another guy that opted out of last season because of COVID. I don't know if anyone's been really following his whole timeline. The guy's battled blood clots, and so I don't blame him for opting out last year with everything going on. But he has an extremely high ceiling in that defensive tackle position. And I think for the second spot, I mean, I think LeBron Stokes, I think he was a transfer out of NEO. he's a great player too. I just think Jaylen Redmond is got an extremely high ceiling. Maybe week one, LaRon might start, and it might be one of those deals, like I said earlier with Kennedy Brooks. It might be, easing Redmond into the football season a little more. He's missed a full year, and I can't remember if he got hurt at the end of the 2019 season, if he finished the rest of the season. I can't remember, but he's been removed from football for like a year and a half regardless. What do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I did not remember that about Jaylen Redmond. I agree that he will be the starter in the long term, but yeah, I think that in this position, more specifically, LaRon Stokes will be the day one starter, and Jaylen will slowly take over the role and get his position back once we probably get to conference play.
Yeah, I mean, Redmond is just so fast and so disruptive. I mean, him and Perrion Winfrey, their ability to rush the passer from the tackle position is insane. And to have them both on the field at the same time, that's got to cause headaches for, defensive or offensive linemen. And then you think about, so you've got Isaiah Thomas off one side, and then the other position, the guy that everyone, knows of and is arguably one of the best in the country at the rush position, is Nick Bonino. So you've got Isaiah Thomas, Perrion Winfrey, Jaylen Redmond, and Nick Bonino coming to all four of you on the front four. That is ridiculous, and I don't know how you stop them. You better hope that the Sooners don't blitz you, because you're already going to have your hands full with four, and there's five of you. What do you think?
Every team must better have a two tight end set just at all times, because you're not stopping this defensive line from getting to the backfield. Or you better have probably this Tom Brady as quarterback, because no one's going to release the ball fast enough to actually make it worthwhile. But yeah, it's going to 100% be Nick Bonito. Nick's probably going to be a first-round draft pick after this year. His backup, I don't know. I think this dude's probably going to try to stay on the field as much as possible and just tell the coaches to let the backup stay the backup, and I'm going to be on the field.
I think another guy that I'm a big fan of that would be his backup is Shane Witter. He played a great spring game, like we've been saying. You can't put too much stock in the spring game, but I really think he's coming along, and I think he's going to be the backup, and he's going to be in the rotation this year. He's a go-getter. He's a heavy hitter too, and I really think he's going to be a good contributor. He might only be on the field for 30% of snaps, but because of Nick Bonino, but I really think he's going to be there for the 2022 year, where he can make that next step as a starter. In the Mike position, you're going to have Deshaun White and David Owegbu, and it's all going to be somewhat interchangeable with how they do this, but those are going to be the two guys that I think are going to be, the depth there. See, it just depends on the packages. Like Deshaun White fits more of a Mike in some spots, and then David Owegbu fits better. It's like 1A, 1B. What do you do? I think Owegbu's better, but they're both really good. So I would say I would give the slight edge to Owegbu, but Deshaun White's going to be right there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the starter will be Deshaun White, and Owegbu will be coming in to relieve him or Nick. So it'll be a 3-man rotation in that with that little group, because Owegbu is very good at rushing, at creating a pass rush too. So it won't be so. We'll see. I don't think we'll ever see the three of them on the field, or at least not very much together. But there's always going to be a combination of two of those guys.
Yeah, and then if Witter is going to take that next step, you're going to have four guys that can rotate in those two positions. And granted, you're going to think Menino's going to be on the field 75, 80% of snaps, and then you've got Deshaun White at 60, and you've got Owegbu at 60, and Witter maybe at 30, whatever. Well, that doesn't really the percentage doesn't really add up, but it can all work out. A lot of talent. It's kind of splitting hairs at that point, and then. Kind of at the will linebacker position, you're going to have Brian Asamoah. But just because Caleb Williams, I love Caleb. I
Kelly.
really think, not Caleb Williams, sorry, Caleb Kelly. Yeah, Caleb Kelly, gosh, he came in when we were still in school. He's the only guy that's been able to play with Baker, Kyler, Jalen Hurts, and now Spencer Rattler. I feel like at the will spot, Caleb Kelly will fit better than because I think they were, before he got hurt, I think they wanted him to play more of a rush or Mike position. I can't remember, but I think they were forcing him in a spot where just because of depth. I really think it's going to be Asamoah and him and Kelly. I think it's going to be one of those deals that Asamoah is going to play a little more. I just think Caleb Kelly's got some injury concerns, obviously, but Kelly's still a terrific talent, even though he's gone through what he has. So I just think it's going to be another one of those rotating spots where, they're both great.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Like you said, I think Caleb Kelly, we as fans of Oklahoma and really this guy saying what he's had to go through his entire time as a Sooner, like we're rooting for him and hopefully he gets to play more snaps in Asamoah. I just think Asamoah at this point, being younger, having a higher ceiling, giving him more reps is going to be more valuable than just inserting Caleb just because he's been around and, for a good story. I think he'll play. He just won't be as impactful as we hope that he could have been without the injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to bounce back when he's had 2 ACL surgeries. So, I mean, if he's not as fast as he once was, I mean, I can't blame him. But there are people out there that come back and are just as good, if not better. So he might be one of those guys. I hope he is, because we can use the depth and use him this year.
Did he? Well, quick question, because I don't remember before we move on to the DBs. Did he play with Eric Stryker, or was he like right after?
Stryker graduated
in 14, I thought, or 15.
I think Stryker might have been here, but I don't think Kelly was on the field with him.
But they were at least teammates.
Well, I don't know, because Stryker, he played in that Alabama OU Sugar Bowl game, right?
Yeah, but he also played our freshman year, which was 2014, because he was big on campus that during.
Gosh, now that you're asking, I'm going to look this up real quick, because it's going to bother me. Yeah, 2015 was his last year, and then Caleb Kelly. I'm trying to think. Look at this real quick. No, Kelly came in 2016 was his first year.
So just the year after?
Yeah, just a year after. Yeah, but it was close. It was definitely close. I knew it was like within a year if they weren't overlapping with each other, which is hard to believe. It's
crazy.
Golly. So the corner spot, we're not going to break out who's left, who's right, I guess we could talk about nickel, because nickel's a little different. We're not going to argue over who's left and right. So left, I think who's really great, and I think he's taking the next step, is DJ Graham. He's one of them. Whether he's left or right, I don't know. But DJ Graham, he was like a 3-star recruit, I think, coming out of somewhere in Texas, and he brings an edge to him, and he's physical, and he plays bump and run. I think he's going to be a lock for sure. Granted, this is another position that's going to be rotated. I know he's not going to be on the field for literally every snap. But the other corner spot is going to be a battle in my position of between Woody Washington and Jaden Davis. Jaden Davis, he's a little more up and down, but Woody Washington has been kind of just more of a consistent and more reliable, per se. He's still very young, though. So, they're all young. Davis is the one that's a year older than them. But I would say it's probably going to be DJ Graham and Woody Washington. But, it's kind of up in the air. Who's going to really start? Davis could get in there. It just depends. If he can put together and be consistent, Jaden Davis could definitely be a starter. What do you think, Jose?
I think that the starting DBs will be DJ 100%. That dude has been all over OU football social media. He had a great season last year. You don't post about a guy on your Twitter or Instagram unless he's going to be something for the team, and DJ's everywhere. So DJ's a lock. I think the other DB will be Woody Washington. Woody had a good season last year. I mean, the guy was just pretty much sticking to his receiver. You always saw him right next to the guy, and Jayden will end up having to be the reliever, or just whenever the opposing team is playing for receiver sets, he'll come in. But I think Woody will be on the field a lot more than Jayden will be.
Yeah, and Joshua Eden, he's got the frame. I haven't really seen too much as far as pictures of him go. He just needs to put on a little more weight. I'm sure they did. Last year when he played a little bit, he was very lanky and needed to bulk up some. I'm sure he has. He could definitely compete. I think Latrell McCutcheon, high ceiling guy too. I just think he's going to redshirt this year, keep that extra year of eligibility down the road. But I think DJ Graham, Woody Washington, and Jaden Davis are going to be the main three, and Eaton might get into that rotation. I don't think he's going to be the starter just yet, but he could be. Safety position, I really like DTY, Delarian Turner Yell at the strong spot. Now at the free, this is where, I'll let you go ahead with the strong. What do you think about the strong safety position?
Yeah, it's DTY. He's been a starter for a while now, so might as well just let him finish it off.
And I will say, Justin Harrington, now that he's healthy, not a lot of people know about him. I know he was a transfer. I forget what community college he came from. The guy is big and he's physical, and he's going to turn some heads this fall. He's going to hit some people. And I also think, is it Mukes? Yeah, I think it's Jordan Mukes. Well, maybe he's more of a free safety, but Mukes is another great one. But I really think Harrington's going to be in this rotation, and I think he's going to make a name for himself and be someone that every Sooner fan thinks of when they talk about that defensive back room. Harrington has a very high ceiling. He tore his ACL last year, so he obviously missed it. I think some people have forgotten about him, and I think he's going to be really good too. Free safety. See, this is where it gets interesting because you've got a guy like Patrick Fields, Tulsa product. He went to Union High School, local kid, leader, very intelligent, great player. But then behind him, he's got a transfer in Key Lawrence from Tennessee. I think Patrick's going to start. He's definitely going to be rotated with Key Lawrence, and Mukes might even play a little bit. I kind of feel like they're going to try to redshirt him. But if Pat doesn't play, up to the spot, to complement DTY, I could see Key Lawrence taking the next step. But I really think Pat Fields, this is his spot to lose. He's going to have to play bad for him to lose. I don't think Key's going to beat him out. What do you think?
I actually think Key Lawrence is going to be the starter, and Pat will be the backup. I just think that Keys brings a different level of athleticism to that position that Pat just doesn't have. And he'll get playing time, but Key's going to be the starter there, and he'll be a very important person in that DB room.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I mean, they're both going to play. It's just going to be a matter of what's the split. I don't know. Pat brings a whole different leadership mentality too, and I just think that might factor in. But we'll see. A lot of things can change. But you can't. I mean, you can be a great leader and a great personality, but if you're not producing on the field, at some point you have to make a change. But we'll see. So that's an interesting spot, and probably the most interesting spot in the defense, as far as the defensive back goes, is the nickel spot. I'm glad Bookie's gone. He is. I know he brought the whole mindset, and, it seemed like he was really beloved in the locker room, and, he's very emotional and whatnot. I'm glad he's gone. He'll probably start for Washington in one of the defensive back spots. But this is going to be between Billy Bowman and Jeremiah Cordell. I don't think Bowman's going to redshirt this year. I saw a picture of Bowman. I'm sure a lot of people did. I saw a week or two ago. The guy looks huge. I don't know. This one is like the real coin flip 50-50 to me, because Cordell's been great. but Bowman is just like a different level of athlete that I just wonder whoever starts is going to have a short leash because whoever's sitting on the bench is very talented as well. I'm going to say Cordell is going to start, but it's going to be a very, very close split, and the leash is going to be short, and because Bowman's sitting right there. I assume you
picking
don't
Billy
agree.
Bowman. This is, and like you said, this is where I think this is probably the most controversial spot for a lot of Sooner fans. I think a lot of people are wanting Cordell to start and play, but I think Billy Bowman is just too talented. He's too special. We just got to get him on the field and let's just see him locked down. A combination of him, DJ, and Woody is going to be very hard to pass against, especially whenever you have our just monstrous defensive line in your face. So he's going to be something this year as a true freshman.
That's fair. I hope so. I just don't want us to forget that Cordell has some hype with him too, but it's really nice that we can actually argue who's going to start in the defensive back room. Like, out of the 5 position, who's going to start? Because before it was like, well, we've got 3 good starters and we've got 5 spots. All right, who are we throwing in there?
And it's an argument because there's so much talent. It's not, well, we got to fill it in. Which one of you is going to suck the least today?
Yeah. Like, man, he's been really bad. Let's go get him and see what he can do for us. Maybe it won't be quite as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So So it's going to be interesting to see. It could be one of those deals where, I think a lot of our projections right now, the starters are week 1. A lot of things can change over the course of the full season. A lot of these younger guys might get more confidence and be able to really be contributing this later in the season and going to the playoffs or whatever. A little bit of special teams. I think really the only spot that we could maybe talk about, Gabe Richich is going to be the starting kicker. But as far as punter, it seems like Munchow is not going to be the starter. I think Michael Turk, the Arizona State transfer, I read something about him that he has impressed some people as far as his ability to pin people deep in their own zone, like within their own 20, which is huge. You pin someone at the 10-yard line with this defense, could end up in a pick 6, fumble, safety, somewhere in there. Munchow has not been bad. But I just think for the 1 year that Turk's got left, or no, maybe he's got 2 years left. I think he's more of a specialist and has the ability to be a elite punter. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's Turk. He's also got a boot on that leg. He's bombing those balls if he has to. But yeah, it is very impressive whenever a guy can just kind of pinpoint, and he's got so much control on the ball when it hits his foot that you just can't let him sit there. And he transferred. Like, you don't just get a transfer punter unless you need him.
Yeah. And then so the punt return and kick return positions. Punt returner, CeeDee Lamb, Trey Brown, those have been the last few guys. And so now punt returner, I know Marvin Mims, he's electric, and he's a really great athlete and can return punts, but he'll probably be the starter. I just wonder, do you try to protect him and let a guy that isn't a starter return kicks? But then I said, CeeDee Lamb, he and Trey Brown, they both were starters, so they both returned. It's probably going to be Mims, but I just wonder if you get a guy like a Mario Williams or a Billy Bowman to return punts, could that be better and protect Mims? What do you think?
Yeah, I personally, like when CD was the returner, I hated seeing it because, special teams is probably the most dangerous phase in football to play just because you've got so many bodies flying around you, and it's not just the other team trying to kill you. It's your team is trying to protect you, and they're going to be right there. And like they can't stop. They can't help but roll into you potentially. So hopefully it's not Mims. My ideal scenario is it's a mixture between Billy and maybe like Hazelwood. You know, if he's not going to be the other starting wideout, then let him, you know, get some special teams work. So he's contributing to the team. He's still a very good athlete, so might as well just throw him out there for some kick returning and punt returning. But and then Billy's just again mega athlete. Might as well use him while you have him for 3 years, because unless you just convince him to stay for his senior year, which I think for most people is unexpected for anyone to do that. So throw Billy Bowman out there for his freshman year is like his initiation into being a Sooner. You got to do this for 1 year, bud, and then next year we'll take you off of it so you can just play DB.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think kick returner, I think it's going to be Billy Bowman and Mario Williams are going to be the deep guys. They could get a defensive back in there, you know, or another one other than just Billy Bowman, someone that can really move. I think it's going to be between Mims, Williams, and Bowman that are going to be the kick returner, punt returners. I personally agree with you. I would rather not have any starter as a punt returner or a kick returner, but I get the argument. You know, it changes field position and changes sometimes the game. You know, not to go off on a tangent, but the Patriots for a long time had Julian Edelman as their punt returner, and there were times where he was electric and got a great return, and there was only 30 yards to the end zone, and it made a big difference. So I get why you put your best players out there. I just get worried. But the depth at the receiver position is great. So if one of them did get hurt between Williams and Mims, there's going to be someone that's going to be good to back them up. So I think that's pretty much everyone. We're not going to get into the holder, you know, long snapper or what. I mean, it is what it is at that spot. I don't really know enough at those positions to argue who's going to take that spot, but I think that's our lineup for this week 1 against Tulane. There's a very good chance that by the end of the season this is going to be totally wrong, but I don't know. It'll be tough to say. So you have any final thoughts, Jose?
We probably have the most accurate starting lineup for the Sooners. Drake Stoops, another guy to look at for a returning position. He's a pretty shifty dude, so it would be fun to see him out there more regularly than we probably won't get very many wide receiver plays, at least how I expect it to play.
That's actually a really good suggestion. I never even thought about that. That's actually a really good idea. Yeah. I don't know why you wouldn't throw him out there. I'd rather have him than Mims, but whatever. So, well, if you've made it this far, I'm sure you have some disagreements with one of us or both of us. Let us know what you think. Give us your reasoning. We'll definitely respond back with you. Open to discussion. At the end of the day, I'm not going to be upset if our predictions are wrong. If you put the best players out there and we keep winning, that's all that matters to me. So, a lot of depth, a lot of talent, and a lot of ability to win a national championship this season. So if you hadn't already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate it. It lets us know that that you like our video. We can keep the content coming your way. And make sure to like us on or follow us on Twitter and like us on Instagram or follow us on Instagram, whatever it is. And let us know what you think on those social media platforms as well. So we really appreciate it, and we will catch you later this week or next week. Thanks, guys.